Great. Well, welcome everyone to 2026 HR Predictions brought to you by Culture Amp. And we're here with the one and only Heather Walker from the People Science Research Team at Culture Amp to walk us through the predictions. Very excited to have her back with us. Give her a little love in the chat, please. Or if you're on camera, a little whoop whoop. Thank you, Christy. Um, Yes, so every year Culture Amp comes out with some predictions. Obviously, no one can like tell the future, but we've got some cool. Obviously, we have a large, one of the largest employee data lakes in the world, with over 32 million employees having filled out a Culture Amp survey at this point. So we've got a lot of data points, and I'll let Heather speak to all that can help us better foresee what's about to happen in the future. Um, I would love if we could use this new tool for a little check-in today. If anyone has seen this before, it's called Pickles. If you scan your QR code, and if you can't, that's okay too. But if you can, scan this QR code and it'll pop up to a different window here. It'll pop up into this. And I would love if you could just draw how you're doing today. And then it'll show a little hodgepodge of all of our little drawings. You can change the color that you end up drawing with. You can change the size that you are drawing with. So you're welcome to get creative on this. But let's see how we're doing today. Let's see. We've got snowmen, great. Smiley faces, snow, storming weather. Someone maybe is a queen. I think someone maybe just drew a pickle. I'm not really sure. Someone's sleepy. Someone's also with their dog. I'm loving this. Cup of coffee, fantastic. All right. Fantastic. I wish I knew what these were. But someone went all out on their little two snowmen. Okay. I love this. Great. Olives? Question mark. Yeah, I want to know. Is someone drinking wine? What's happening? It is wine. It is 5 p.m. in Italy. That's awesome. Not yet, but soon, soon, very soon. Okay, fun. All right. Well, thank you all for humoring me in our my pickles check-in. I just like trying new little tools like this. So fantastic. All right. I'm before we kind of get into things, this is obviously being recorded for especially for the folks in APAC who this time doesn't work well for. I want to make sure that they have a chance to see this. Um, You're welcome to interact with one another in the chat. You're welcome to be on camera or not on camera, whatever. And then this is going to be AMA style, and Heather will walk us through things, but you're welcome to kind of jump in and ask questions at any time. This is kind of a dialogue about the predictions. And like I mentioned, we're here with Dr. Heather Walker, senior data journalist at Culture Amp. We've collaborated with her in the past and hopefully we'll continue to collaborate with her. I'm extremely grateful for her. So, with that said, if you're able to, can you come off mute, give Heather a little love, or give a little love in the chat and just like thank you, Heather, for being here.
Thank you, Heather.
All right. Heather, what did you draw? How are you doing?
I didn't draw because I'm on my phone on my audio.
Fair, fair.
I am a little under the weather because I had a really great time at Thanksgiving. We had 20 people in my house for 4 days,
Oh my God.
sleeping and everything. So it was a wild time, but it was definitely worth it because my heart is full, and if I have to blow my nose a few times, that's fine.
Worth it.
So my spirits are high, even though I sound congested because I am.
All good, all good. All right. Would you like me to share screen? Are you comfortable with that? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I would love that.
Great.
Thanks, Jesse.
Over to you, my friend.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna do this like one prediction at a time and then have some discussion. I have drafted what I would consider like a debate heavy or provocative style discussion question to follow each of the predictions, hoping that we can talk. Um, Sorry, Christy, I'm just seeing your message. Your heart and your nose is full. Yes. So that we can talk about each of the predictions one by one, rather than me like going through the whole thing. This is also available via blog, which we've linked at the end of this. But also, if you search predictions Culture Amp 2026, you'll find it. If you haven't looked at it yet, can you actually all, before I jump in, can you use the chat really quickly? Can you say yes or no on whether you've seen these predictions before? Not. Okay. No. Oh my. Okay. Oh my goodness. Well, okay. Let me just start off then by saying, for those who have not yet looked at them, they're pretty spicy. And so, oh, good. Yay. Okay. So they're pretty spicy. This is what we aim for every year. So we'll do one prediction at a time, have a discussion, and then go to the next prediction. We have 5.5. So we have technically six of them, but one is an AI wild card, which is a sort of culmination of multiple mini predictions rolled into one. And then I'll give you the link to the blog. And also I have an ask of you. Oh, thank you, Jesse. That's perfect. And then, of course, also at the end, we can spend time doing a Q&A, but please feel free to put any questions you have in the chat or just come off mute and ask them. I think we're ready to go. If you want to go to the next slide. Perfection. Thank you. So we have this cultural backdrop that all of us here in this chat, I mean, everywhere in the world of work is experiencing. And that really focuses on two major shifts. The first major shift is AI related, right? AI is everywhere, and all employees across the globe, even in industries like manufacturing, where you maybe wouldn't expect AI to be influencing it so heavy, it really is also showing up there. And so AI is infiltrated the world of work completely. And so it's one of the things that sort of forms an umbrella under which all of our predictions were made. And the other piece is that we looked at power dynamics in the workforce and in the world of work in general. And last year we had a prediction that uh, there was a standoff between employers and employees, kind of like who holds the power. That struggle continued. And now, as we go into 2026, that power struggle has sort of found its way home. So now employers hold all the leverage, and employees are really feeling the pain of that, of having lost that leverage. And so that helps to explain how all of our predictions are situated. But before I go into the first one, there's one other thing I want to say, which is not on the slide here, but that is very important, which is about our methodology. At Culture Amp, we've been doing predictions now for 3 years, and each year we have beefed up our methodology on how we create and test out these predictions that we have. Of course, they're grounded in sound data. That's our data lake. Jesse mentioned that already. And we love that. We love bragging about our data lake. It is absolutely massive, and we're really proud of it. But on top of looking at our data lake for trends and using those trends to form predictions, we also had a ton of conversations with our customer-facing people scientists who collectively see about 1,500 businesses worldwide. And regionally, we ask them, what are the trends that you're seeing right now? So that's anecdotal, but when you consider that it's coming from people scientists who see that number of companies, it becomes a really powerful indicator of where the market is and what's happening with companies around the world. So we thematicized everything that they brought up, that they had also been thematicizing, if that makes sense, because we asked them, what are the themes? What do you think is going to happen based on what your customers are saying and what they're planning to do next year? And then we pressure tested that with all of the data. We also worked cross-functionally. So we brought in marketing leaders, we brought in product leaders, we brought in customer success leaders, sales leaders, sort of everyone to come in and pressure test these. So they're very robust. And so we're proud of that. That said, there may be some where you're like, I don't know, this doesn't seem true for my organization, and that's okay. And I want to hear about it. So we can go into the first one now. I think we are officially ready to do that. And I'm so excited some of you haven't seen these. Um, So this first prediction, prediction one, reflects a broader trend of what's called job hugging. You may be familiar with this term. This sort of like the new euphemism that's come into the media. But it describes when employees stay at their current company longer because there are fewer higher paying roles externally, or there are just less opportunities externally. And so, because those external opportunities aren't as abundant as they once were, people are sort of holding on to their jobs, not out of a desire to really be there and because they're super engaged, but because they fear that there's not something external. What this does, of course, in organizations, job hugging, is create talent jams. And companies can't move talent through. If, say, they have a high performer that they want to promote, they might not be able to promote them because someone at a higher level is holding on to their job because they can't find something else externally. And so, what we're predicting based on this is that in 2026, companies are going to be more transparent with their employees about what's not working well at their company. So, you all know EVP, that's employee value proposition. Companies historically have really focused on that. And maybe in 2026, we're being cheeky here, but maybe we'll see companies focus more on the leave VP, on putting together a list of transparently a list of things that aren't going well at their companies. Now, when we were thinking about this and talking through it, we heard about a marketing approach called repulsion marketing, which is a real thing. I kind of doubted it at first, but it's a real thing. And it essentially means being honest about the messy parts, in this case of culture, but it could be of a product. So this is a real marketing term, to attract the right people and move out the wrong ones. And so we're thinking that this moving to Leave VP is a part of that repulsion marketing strategy, and leaning on that. So our supporting data that shows top and lowest scoring items globally. So this is from our benchmark data. That's the data that you're seeing here on the screen. Um, the top ones where you see in purple, those are what most companies do well on. So it's probably what a lot of companies are adding to their EVPs, what they have been, because those are pretty stable. What's good at companies tends to be good for a long time. And that's from a global context. Now, what's underneath that, though, is potentially what they could be adding to their Leave EP in the next year, right? Accountability is a big piece there that we expect will come forward, but there are others as well. So that is the prediction that companies are going to move from focusing on an EVP to a Leave EP to move job huggers out to create opportunities for internal mobility. And we want to know, of course, what is your hot take? So we can go to the next slide, Jesse, and start our first discussion, which is, do you think that radical realism, so that's that Leave EP part, about the employee experience will more likely create movement? Like, will it do what we think it will do? Or is it going to lead to just higher levels of sort of disengaged stasis in 2026? And I love dissent, so don't feel any kind of pressure to say a certain thing. I want to hear what you think. Who's first?
I love that question. I love it. Can you put it up again? Because I want to see it again. Sorry, Jesse.
Yeah, no, all good, all good.
Like, because as soon as like is radical realism, and I love what you're saying about transparency because I think that that's absolutely true. Companies are seeing that their lack of transparency is adding to the total misery that people are experiencing in their jobs. Um, but this one could go either way. Like,
Mm,
because, looking at the market, the way things are going right now, my gut feeling is that what we're seeing with layoffs and everything is going to continue. And
mhm,
it's actually going to be spread wider because AI is having that impact. But it's not even just AI, it's that companies are trying to correct their mistakes and they're using AI as the scapegoat to do that. And so I still see more layoffs. What I would love to see is more companies realizing that what they're doing is a scarcity based actions where they're concerned more about their bottom line than they are strategically looking for the long term. Because wouldn't it be smarter to upskill your employees on using the tools that they spent billions of dollars implementing rather than hiring new people to learn your processes?
mhm.
So yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
my gut take is that it's going to be slower than 2026. That's my gut take. It's going to take more than a
Mhm.
year.
Okay. Hear that?
I will go. This is Jan. I'm in Orange County. I didn't change my name because I'm walking my dog. But I might make this extra spicy, Heather. I don't love this as a strategy for like getting people to leave.
Mhm.
And I do sort of like it as a strategy in general for being honest. So I don't like the drive, and I do think it's probably going to create more disengagement and people actually leaving because people would rather be unhappy in a lot of situations than be on the streets if they can't afford to not have a job. So that's my opinion. And I think being honest about what's not great about this organization is good for leaders and for employees. Like just to, if they're hiring new people to understand what they're getting into. I don't know. That's just, I saw this and I think I mentioned it on our last call too, but I don't think it's a popular opinion from some people, but I do hold it.
Yeah.
I agree entirely to everything you just said.
Thanks, Deb. Great to not be alone on it.
No, you're not alone. You're not alone.
We got a couple comments in the chat, Heather, if you had a chance to see those, but this idea around like higher disengagement around the VP level and above,
Oh, yeah.
which then like trickles down to the rest of the organization, and then as a result,
Yeah.
seeing also PIPs within professional services firms.
hmm So engagement is going down for every level of leadership, not just VPs. So I'm not surprised to see that that's the case there. It is a little bit worrisome, I think, when our leaders do start to become uber disengaged because leaders are usually the ones that are elevating the company overall. So we've looked at composites before of all of our questions that any customer asks at Culture Amp, and we splice that by leadership level, and it's a direct line up, right? So leaders are always having an elevated experience at the top. What does a world look like where maybe there's a little bit more evenness across the board? And how does the experience change when that's the case? I'm not sure. Maybe that is what we need for there to be some more positive shifting. Like, I understand it, a part of me is like, oh no, we want VPs, we want like C-suite to be really engaged, we want them to be excited. There are leaders, but also maybe that their experience coming down is like a sign that they're more connected to the employee experience. They're also sharing in what's difficult. And so there could be something positive there. The PIPs is another situation, Hank. And we didn't touch that. We don't really talk about PIPs much at, at Culture Amp on the research side of the house because they're so complicated and there's so much going on there. Also, it's really hard to get data on PIPs for us to understand the effect of PIPs on employee experience, but they're definitely having a moment right now. And then Christy, it will backfire because it will damage their brand integrity and hurt the company in the long run. And it may not even work since there's so much fear in the workplace that people will keep jobs despite. Yeah, yeah. So the thing about our predictions, right, is it's not necessarily what we want to see happen. It's just what we're predicting will. And so some of these, when you read the blog, you'll see like, Culture Amp is coming in and saying, this isn't the future that we necessarily want, but HR needs to intervene and HR, needs to take some steps to prevent this because it's what we see coming down the pike. And I think that's so true. Um, Also, if you look at like Glassdoor reviews, right, employees are being honest, and then it's frustrating, I think, for employees too, when leaders are saying something very different than what their experience is like, right? So there's a backfiring when you're not transparent. Also, okay, Jesse's saying you love the dog walking. Yes, is the goal behind radical realism to push people out of the company? If so, there will be a disengaged stasis among the remaining employees. If the goal is to move people within the company to that role. Yeah, I agree. Do I pronounce your name Jana? Jana? Jana?
Jana, you got it.
Jana. Okay.
Jana, thanks.
Great, 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 great. Love that. Quit and leave. People will quit and stay. Yes. Although that's quiet quitting, the quit and stay. And we did an analysis of that recently, and we found that only like less than 2% of the workforce fits into that category, which is good. Which is good. Okay. Some folks have been really craving. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Similar to what Hickman said, definitely impacting leaders and shifting them toward higher disengagement. Yeah. Fantasyland. Oh, good.
I know. I feel like it would take a really bold organization to be like, this isn't what's working well here. Because I feel like there's still a lot of like virtue signaling happening around like everything's great here. And
Definitely.
like, I mean, it's hard to be a recruiter. Can you imagine the like lack of authenticity that that would take too?
Mm.
Like, oh, yeah.
With hiring, we've seen that in different forms before. Like if you look at job postings, they'll often say like, we're looking for someone scrappy, right? That's a clue that the organization is a place that doesn't have a lot of infrastructure and doesn't have a lot of process set up. There are like these positively framed cues that tell you maybe something's up, but they're not exactly transparent. And so, but I don't know, Jesse. I think the job of TA is really difficult, and we're in a market right now that, I mean, there are swarms of people applying for every single role because there are less roles to go around. And so, I think that I feel for right, the job that they have is just massive right now.
Totally.
Weeding through all the AI formed resumes too. Probably another one.
Okay, for the sake of time, can I move us on, Heather?
Yes,
Okay,
please
great.
do. Okay. So our second prediction is that passive monitoring will redefine success. Really, what this is all about is how passive listening could potentially go too far in 2026 and result in employees responding in kind. So employee monitoring tools, they are becoming more commonplace. These are things like keystroke trackers, time spent in apps, tracking time spent in apps. Now, the risk for companies in over depending on those types of tools is that employees will start working to be seen, right? They're performing for the counter rather than for business impact. And so I like to say for us nerds out there, this is like LARPing, live action role playing your work. Um, in 2026, companies are going to need to respond to that by rebalancing what's counted with human feedback systems. Those are things like one-on-ones, 360s, peer input, sort of anytime feedback. And the purpose of those, right, is to recapture the true value creation at work that can't be done by those passive monitoring tools like those keystroke trackers. The data that we have to support this, right, we know that a third of employees are saying that the way that their performance right now is managed is not motivating them to do better work. And so we already are seeing signs that the whole performance management process is a little demotivating. So leaders have quite a bit of work to do on this front, especially with those AI tools coming in hot to this space. And so that's the second prediction, right? This idea that there will be performance theater in response to the passive monitoring tools. So the question that we have, what is your hot take? If you go to the next slide, Jesse. Yep. Should leaders trust passive productivity data more than peer and manager feedback, or vice versa? Which is more dependable? As a researcher, this is my most exciting question because it's kind of like objective versus subjective data in a way. But I mean, I have issues with the whole subjective data. Anyway, I don't need to talk about that. So what do we think?
I think right now, too many companies rely just on the data and they don't actually listen to the humans in their organization. And as we all know, data can tell any story you want it to. And so I fully expect them to continue down the road that they've been on, which is continuing to elevate data without the actual context of it. And yeah, we're going to see. I fully believe that this prediction will come to pass. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah. It's going to be fun to watch. Okay, so I see two responses in the chat, Kayla and Lindsay, saying like both are important. So I'm going to push you. Let's reframe this to get your hot take out of it. Let's say that leaders had two conflicting pieces of data that would point one way or another. One is from passive productivity data and one is from peer and manager feedback. Which do they trust more to make a decision? The feedback. Okay, so we got Lindsay's hot take.
They don't trust their employees. They treat them like children. So why are they going to trust that feedback? I mean, I apologize if that sounds really like cynical, but 24 years at Accenture, that's what I've seen play out in a big company. Smaller companies may be different. They probably are, but in the big ones, absolutely.
Yeah. Kayla, I saw you unmute.
Yeah, is the question what we predict, or
What do you
I would say that, well, leaders will lean on whichever suits what they're looking to do. That's a terrible answer, but I've seen it go both ways, where they'll use the data to say, great, this tells us what we need to do. This tells us who we need to let go. This tells us who's not being productive. And when the data doesn't point to that, they then lean on feedback.
So what you're saying reminds me of like confirmation bias. Like they're going to go with the data that confirms what they already want to do.
I would say feedback, but my challenge is bias, right? How do you prevent feedback from being biased? I mean, we could look at data, but there's a whole element that's missing. As a business partner, like I constantly work with leaders to look at, okay, how are they doing with soft skills? I have a lot of technical app engineers, developers. Okay, yes, they're doing well in this area, but where can they grow? And I can't see that from data. So I definitely have to say, like, it's a mix of both. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah. I think it should be a mix of both. Yeah.
I think this also comes back to like the performance management process of this being so messed up. Which is that like you can cherry pick who gives you feedback. And it's like, no, like these people are the people that you're working closely with. We should require feedback from those people in the performance review cycle rather than like, I think these three people are going to give me the best feedback when I do this review. It's like that is also a thing to me. And people also don't know how to give good feedback, which I do kind of goes back to this like AI tools, which is also why I'm excited about like using AI coach when we do this next round of performance reviews, Heather, because like I'll be curious to see how that can help me craft giving feedback to my peers in the next perfect cycle. But anyway.
Yeah. That's going to be exciting for us to try. Go ahead. You have your hand raised.
Yeah, adding on to Jesse to what you just said, it's yes, and it seems like in at least the larger companies that I've been in, employees have it like they need to do that. They need to go get feedback that they know is going to be positive because that is like their only opportunity to have anything data collection wise that is in their favor, because otherwise it all comes down to literally it comes down to their manager. That's it. And so whatever their manager is feeling or thinking, like they have complete control over that employee's destiny, basically their future, their career, what happens, what opportunities. And so it's like the employee needs to go gather that data, positive data reinforcing what they've been doing.
And I would go so far, I love that point, Christiane. I would also like go so far as to say like organizations care more about your outputs and your outcomes rather than your actual skills and like behavior and whether you're living the values. I think organizations
100%
care about that at all.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, Emily, over to you, and then we're moving to the next prediction for the sake of time.
Yeah, hey everybody, Emily coming at y'all from Charlotte today. My thought with all of this and what I'm seeing with a couple of my leadership clients is what point are we going to have to hit before leaders think that AI is the magical tool to outsource the human stuff? I say that because companies that only value outputs, like we've mentioned, I'm just wondering how far we are from a tipping point before people realize that humanity has to be centered for AI. That's just my thought there because I've seen a lot of critical thinking outsourced to AI, and
Lawsuits. It's
it's
going to
not
take
getting
some
better.
big cataclysmic lawsuit, I think, to actually make any difference. That's my personal
Money.
opinion. It's going to take some real big cluster F that gets a lot of media attention and could potentially affect lawmaking before it's going to do that. That's my personal opinion. Again, cynical, apologies.
Okay. We have a lot of cynicism over here too, Deb. Okay, shall we go?
Yes.
Okay, this is one of my favorites. So prediction 3 is all about AI clocking in, and on a scale that HR may or may not be prepared for. Our data is showing that less than half of HR professionals, we conducted this in the communities, by the way. This data came from a communities poll. But yeah, so less than half of HR professionals think that AI and use of AI is going to elevate the function. It's going to convince people that HR has more value. 2/3 worry that their colleagues will be left behind who aren't using it. That's very typical. But the harshest of it all, this is that middle bar in blue. Only 30% of HR professionals think that HR should own AI strategy at work. Which was mind-boggling to me because AI now has so much to do with process and workflow. But the prediction around all of this is about HR's response to AI in 2026. We think HR is going to be really faced with workforces that are expected to be AI enabled and AI powered, right? So, what one employee is capable of doing within 40 hours is going to rapidly expand from a task-based perspective. And HR is really going to be at the center of contending with what that means and what that looks like. What does a workforce look like when only one really smart entry level employee can do the work of 10? Like that really is probably what we're looking at in 2026. How does HR manage that? In the blog, which you've linked to, and again, we'll repeat, we'll give it to you again at the end, but what we're urging is HR professionals to prioritize the human in this shift and like defend what is human. It's going to take some work. But one thing that, like, an image that comes to mind for me with this is that we're in a stage that's similar to 1998, which was the year that the Macintosh computers came out. Do you remember? Like every school had a new computer lab, and they all had those colorful um, Mac computers, not laptops, but like the big fat ones. I'm not seeing much nodding, but maybe you know what I'm talking about. But suddenly, like all work, and that happened to workplaces. I was a kid, so I saw it in my library. But suddenly, like workplaces everywhere had to completely shift around this very user-friendly computer and move to using computers and really reconsider what was needed from and for a workforce to be successful given this like giant leap in technology. So our question or hot take for this, right, think about HR defending what is human, is how should HR leaders decide which capabilities become machine owned and human owned in the next, let's say 2 years, not just 2026? What are HR professionals needing to consider?
I have so many opinions on this, and I've already like been the person that speaks up every time. I hesitate to like, okay. So MIT did a study on what are the things that AI cannot do that are strictly human. And it's called EPOCH, EPOCH. It has to do with empathy, it has to do with leadership, it has to do with all of those things. And as someone who's literally teaching AI to midlife women, I can say honestly that anything that has to do with requiring any of those capabilities absolutely needs to. Here's the thing with AI, y'all, it's only as good as the human using it, right?
Mm.
And the outputs cannot be trusted, and they won't be able to be trusted for, if you believe some of the scientists, for another 10 years, no matter what the tech bros in Silicon Valley are like, oh, in a year, we're going to be doing everything. Yeah, no. Fantasyland, this is the Fantasyland I'm talking about. It's going to take 10 years before we have a fully autonomous AI that can do things without human intervention. That is the reality, I personally believe, based on what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, I actually think what we need to do is just get back to the basics of the frickin' processes. Because right now, all the structures in most companies are so effed up. 35%, what is it? 35 times more complex with bureaucracy than it was in
Mm-hmm.
1960.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to automate that? What? Why, instead of automating our craptastic processes, why don't we use this incredibly smart AI to help us create new organizations? What an idea! New structures. Anyways, okay, I'll stop. I could go on forever.
Deb, I think this would be very fitting for the comedy session that Jesse did. It's really, really good. And I agree with what you're saying. Although there's one question I have, which is actually, so AI is being trained to be empathetic, and it's doing a decent job. But what's different about it, Deb, is that the receiver feels different about an AI being empathetic versus a person, because you can have the AI say exactly the same thing as what a human would say, but it's about the receiver and how they're taking in that information.
Well, and here's the thing that most people miss about AI. It is not a brain. It does
No,
not understand words. It is literally guessing at the patterns. So it
it
does
is.
not
Yeah.
understand meaning. So
Hmm.
how can you really get empathy from a thing that doesn't understand the meaning of the words it's using?
Yeah. And maybe that's on the receiver's end, the difference, right? Is like, a computer doesn't actually understand, even if they're saying that they do. Okay, so Jess says every time my AI asks me how my weekend was, I'm like, why do I have to take time to tell you that? I
I would
feel,
like to add something here.
yes, please.
Um, yeah, so I think one thing that I definitely feel is going to happen is more and more business-oriented HR professionals. Because when you talk about more AI and automations, it also means HR must know the business. They must know where efficiency can be built in, how people can use AI to enhance their productivity and impact instead of, replacing people with AI. So that is something which more and more HR professionals need to bring to table to be able to discuss with CEOs, CXOs, and business leaders. What are the pros and cons of having people or AI? And instead of replacing people, how people can actually leverage AI and automations to bring more impact, bring faster implementation and execution. So,
Mhm.
and of course, like Deb said, AI can do a lot, but it cannot replace humans. And we
Mhm.
are already seeing a lot of case studies. There have been case studies about Starbucks. They pulled back, they stopped hiring, and then they had to pull back. They restarted hiring again. There are case studies on HBR wherein in Silicon Valley and stuff, people started sending their robots to attend meetings. All of that is getting pulled. People are having negative feedback on that. So a lot of AI experiments are actually failing. So I feel that is where HR has leverage to bring in more and more of expertise on this fact.
Mhm. Love that. Yes, yes, yes.
I don't
Okay,
know.
and
To me, and then my last point, and then I think we should move on, which is just like, pardon my French, but for fuck's sake, can we stop giving everything to HR? Like, COVID happens, and then they're like, "Oh, figure this out. What do we do?" And it's like, "Oh my God." And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a seat at the table and be a part of that conversation and
Mm.
being like driving the conversation, but I don't think we should be owning the conversation, in my opinion. It's like that's absurd. And to me, I'm just like, the amount of unpaid emotional labor that our industry takes care of is already like, I'm like, you want us to do the data, you want us to do the data analysis, you want us to have all of the AI knowledge and be at the front of that. And then you also want us to be able to like have real conversations and giving real feedback and setting up systems and structures. I'm like, that's everything. We should just be the CEOs then at this point. Like,
That
what is going
that's the
on?
reality. And Jesse, there was an article about this yesterday about how from a psychologist saying HR has been dehumanized. And
Totally.
that's what we're feeling is the impact of decades of HR not being considered human.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. And to me, it's like they're still, and yet they're still the ones that people are going to when they're navigating conflict. And it's like,
Mm.
cool, that's the anyway.
Yeah,
Um, okay, moving us
great,
on. Sorry, Heather, that
great
was the end
hot
of my
take.
rant.
Oh, I love every hot take. Every hot take deserves a little stage, so I'm glad that you got that one. Let's move on to prediction four. Okay, so prediction four is about the climb to leadership and that path being essentially less appealing to employees next year. So we know Gen Z doesn't want to manage. There are quite a few studies out there saying that compared to other generations, if you believe generations are a legit thing, or that there are actually differences, Gen Z doesn't want to manage. That's this conscious unbossing trend, if you've heard about that, right? We looked at middle managers in our data set, and they're feeling overstressed. They're feeling like their workload is less reasonable than other levels of leadership. In fact, it's the worst. And then on top of that, there's a lot of evidence out in the market that it's not really safe to be a middle manager right now. There are big companies making spectacles, public media spectacles, out of intentionally restructuring in a way that cuts middle managers out. So not only is it extra work, lots of stress, you're managing both up and down, but also those roles are feeling unstable. And so if we were to try to find a positive side of this, because this is a bit doom and gloom, AI is here, and I think this is one positive aspect of AI that's coming out to the workforce, right? And it could be that with an AI coach, managers can actually do more with less. They actually can increase their spans of control. The thing is, spans of control are going to be increasing anyway. And so AI is not a reason to expand those spans of control, right? So instead of one manager managing 3 employees, maybe they're managing 8. It's not a reason to do that, but it will help them when that inevitably happens because of the way that staffing has been happening with layoffs and rifts and all of that. So time will tell with AI coaches, but we're sort of predicting that we're right at the beginning of a new wave of management where, because of AI, leaders may actually be able to do more with less. Yeah, I know, but they have already increased so much with flat structures. Yes. I mean, I agree. So let's go on to our hot take. That's what the prediction is, that employees are going to reject the climb for the reasons laid out. What is your hot take? If fewer people want to lead, do you think organizations should redesign leadership altogether or double down on rebuilding a leadership pipeline?
I think, to be honest, what comes to my mind in this is the previous report in which we had the Peloton form of team and sort of rotate the team leadership. So yeah, I think just redesigning how the ways or the work is organized, which also means how redesigning how the leadership is organized. So, you don't have one specific leader managing A to Z of a particular team, but rather stream leaders or, different ways of thinking about leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to bring in the generational hot take with that one too. Gen Z is looking at what Gen X and boomers have been living with, and they're like, what the dickens? Like, why do you all like go in this? Like, why do you do this? And they're looking at how managers are being treated. They're looking at what happens for leadership, and they're like, I don't want anything to do with it. I want nothing to do with it. So, trying to rebuild the pipeline is going to be difficult unless they're actually willing to hire people my age again. Hello. So yeah, that's my personal hot take.
Got it. Like it.
I would say like
Okay.
this is I feel like Gen Z, this is my hot take in that like I feel like Gen Z is almost rejecting capitalism as a whole. And so like there's almost like there's a piece of it that's like why would we want to engage in the entire effed up system that we have? So there's like a piece of that. And then for me it always goes back to performance management, which is like yeah, but we see that if we work in this organization for this many years, then we should have these clear career pathing. But again, like the processes for folks being able to actually move up in their organizations is broken. So like to me, it's like redesigning and fixing the performance management and like the career pathing problem that organizations have. I don't know, making that a better system.
Yeah, I agree. Let's keep going because I'm realizing we only have 11 minutes left. And we still have, technically, we still have 2. I know I said one was my favorite, but this one is actually my favorite. This 5th prediction is about where employee motivation may turn in 2026. And this prediction specifically speaks to that swinging pendulum of power, right? Having landed back with employers. As employers now have all of the leverage, they're not putting as many resources into retaining people. And maybe they don't even want to retain people because we're having these talent jams. But the one result of this is that the career is being really redefined, right? We just talked about that too with this generational thing. Maybe having a career isn't worth it because it just means anyway. So our longitudinal view of benchmark data shows that since 2021, fewer employees feel energized or positive about work. So the prediction is that the side hustle is going to have a renaissance, which I think is really lovely from the employee point of view. Because employee motivation is not drying up, right? Just because we're seeing that motivation go down year over year, it doesn't mean it's going away. And our prediction is they're channeling that ambition elsewhere and into side hustles. So has the pendulum swung? Absolutely, yes. But leaders and employers who still focus on creating workplace cultures where people want to spend their ambition and energy, they're going to end up faring way better than those who turn away from it now. It's sort of like this is really revealing when focusing on culture is performative versus when the leaders at an organization actually buy in, because there's no requirement right now, given the market, that employers create work cultures that are positive for their employees. It's not a demand in the world of work right now. That demand has gone away, and so the ones who still do it are definitely going to have a leg up. But I personally love this one. Like, I make sourdough bread. I teach a fitness class. I have my side hustles, and so um, yeah, I like sell kombucha on the side. I love it. I think it's such an uplifting part of this whole thing, which has been sort of doom and gloom. But the question that I have for you around that, if you go to the next slide, Jesse, is will employers even perceive side hustles as a problem in 2026? Or will they just quietly accept them as the new normal and continue with what they've been doing?
I think they'll only see them as a problem if you have a large following and you're considered a brand liability.
Uh-huh.
I was literally gonna say the same thing. Like if you're on TikTok and maybe you're talking about work as a part of your side hustle, it could go left really fast. But I don't think it'll be a problem. I don't think.
Mhm. Right. Well, so Jenna, when does it become a direct conflict with the business? I think there's a gray line here, which is maybe it won't compete with the business, what you're doing, but like more of your time is going to get funneled into that. Like, how many work hours go, at what point of work hours being converted to side hustle? Because it will happen. At what point does the employer say, that's too much? Your side hustle has become your whole time, and now your full-time job has become the side. You've broken the contract. Yes, this is all about the contract. Yeah.
I feel like this really comes down to like, okay, are we talking about hourly employees? Are we talking about leaders? What are we talking about here? Because if it's hourly employees, they're not going to care as much. But if it's like this perceived, if we're talking about managers taking on more people and more work and all of these things, and employers having that expectation,
Mhm.
I've seen it, I've been in it. I've had CEOs and executive leaders be like, they should be working on our stuff, not, this other stuff. And so it's like, so my past is in a previous life, not where I work now, thank goodness. But I do think that sentiment for exempt, leaders is common.
Yeah.
Again, it comes down to control. Like
Mm.
there's a lot of companies that still believe in the old or still operate like that being an employee is your end all be all and that they have all the power. And if they
Mhm.
want to control you and what you do with your time, where you go, that kind of thing, yeah, then they're going to have a problem with it. They're going to find reasons to have a problem with it or use as an excuse to get rid of people that they, who knows what they're going to do
Yeah.
with it. But this is the reality, y'all, in the future. The traditional employer employee contract
Mhm.
is fading away.
Yeah.
Now, what that means to me is that we're going to see a lot more people, fractional portfolio, what are all the different words that we use to define someone who does not rely on one employer for their entire income? That is what we're
Mhm.
headed towards.
Yeah.
And I think the more people that embrace that and really start looking for themselves and what is it that lights me up? What is it that gives me energy? Why don't I start to pursue that and then
Mhm.
put the time into that and actually redefine work? Because right now work is horrible. Work is miserable. And let's bring some joy, play, and fun back to it and do stuff that
Mhm.
we actually like.
Yep, I love that. Let's go on. So we only have 5 minutes. I want to just show you what the next one is. We'll probably skip the discussion question for it so that I can show you the article. And well, that's pretty much it. But anyway, so we have AI wildcards. This is kind of a half prediction because it's made up of a bunch of mini predictions. And we haven't really decided as a company what we think will happen with AI because there are too many possibilities of where it could go. We put out some playful ones. One is, will AI get mean? Right now AIs are do so much work to placate the user, and you ask it a question and it's like, great question. No one has asked a better question than this before it gives you an answer, which, by the way, makes the review of the output less critical. So there's a function that's happening with that placation. But maybe in 2026, we'll see some of the AIs shift from placation. Um, that's good. A radical candor filter is good. I've heard of a lot of people using that. It's great. Another possibility, we're hearing some buzz about maybe some companies starting to have a mandatory AI competency test where they're testing their employees on how well they use AI, which in 2026 could divide the workforce into sort of AI enabled and then AI resistant classes, which could be interesting. And then, of course, one possibility, and I think this is a strong possibility based on conversations I've been hearing and privy to, the talent pipeline could start to dry up because of AI. Young employees in particular won't get the early experience that they need because AI is doing those tasks primarily. And so then, like, what's happening to that level of employees? So we have a bunch of fun ones like that. Check out the blog. We only have 4 minutes, so Jesse, can you go skip the next discussion? You can check that out. We're going to send this and then go one more. So we have a link to the full article, although Jesse already put it in the chat as well. But when you get the slide deck, that link works. And then the next one. So you may have heard or seen in the Slack channel. Can you go one more slide? Oh, thank you. Perfect. We're doing a passive listening poll. We're trying to figure out if all of this talk about those passive monitoring tools is hype or if it's really happening. And we need your perspective, and we need to know what is happening. We would like to. We don't need to, but we would like to. So there's SpongeBob looking very cute. There's a QR code. It should work. I tested it this morning, and it worked. It should only take 5 minutes, and it's all about how your company is using AI, not AI, I'm sorry, passive monitoring tools or not. And I will tell you, I'll give you a little sneak peek here. From the data that we have so far, it looks like it's mostly hype. So we really want to have enough data that we can make a strong claim about that. And right now, we don't have quite enough. So we would love your help and support to be able to do that. And as chapter leaders, if you could encourage your chapter members to do that too, that'd be so fantastic. And then, yeah, we have 2 minutes. If anyone has questions or comments, Jesse, you wanted to jump in?
Oh my gosh, Heather, I'm like, sorry, I'm still stuck on your last prediction, which is just like the side hustle thing. And then I think employers will go back to this, like, how do we control people? Get them into the office, track what they're doing, track their hours, track like what tools they're using, and that comes back to this like passive listening poll. But I'm like, is that a thing? Because that would be really sad if we're tracking like the vanity metrics rather than the actual outputs and outcomes and fixing our systems and structures. Yeah.
And I
Anyway.
think capability tests for people for using AI absolutely will happen. We've been doing it for using Microsoft products for decades. Why would we think that AI would be any different? Like, do you know how to use Excel? Do you know how to use Word? Do you know how to use AI? I mean, it's essentially the same thing. Right now, we're in
Yeah.
1997, y'all, when the first time I opened a web browser at work, like Netscape, and I was like, oh, in the original Amazon web page where they sold just books. And I remember thinking, wow, this is amazing. And that's where we are right now.
Mhm.
But we get to shape it. That's the cool thing. Like we get to shape, we're here at the start of it, and we're smart and we're
Yeah.
capable, and we get to shape it.
Mhm.
Oh, to me, I'm just like the humanity of all of this, of like the side hustle thing reminds us that like we're humans, that we're more than just our jobs. And we're like, I think that could lead to less of us retiring, being like, oh gosh, what do I do with my life? You know, it's like, no, all these elements are kind of woven into my entire life rather than my job being my entire identity. And I think we'll see more of like this creative
Mhm.
arts renaissance, more analog experiences. AI is going to actually create more human jobs. Like there's going to be more electricians. I saw
Mhm.
that someone's like getting paid to go and take people on walks. Like people are going to be
Fun.
craving even more in-person experiences like sporting events and concerts.
Mhm.
So to me, I'm like, it will bring us back to being more human in many ways,
Mhm.
I think. And we'll be craving, lock your phone up at a restaurant so we can actually be present with our friends, you know? Like, I do think that we could see more of that as a result of all of this. Yeah, the
Yeah,
pendulum will swing. Team
it
humans.
will. It will.
Oh my gosh. Well, can we give a little love for Heather in the chat? If you can come off mute, give a hoop and a holler. Thank
Thanks.
you so much, Heather, for your
Woo.
time.
Thank
Oh,
you
thank
all.
you.
It was fun. It was really fun.
Thank you,
So
Heather.
good. I
Thank
love these
you.
sessions so much. Like we said, we'll share the recording. I'm also going to put together a guide on how you can have conversations with your local members around these predictions. The Melbourne chapter just did that last week or the week before. So I think that, like what we just did here, our broader community members would really, really enjoy nerding out on. So I'll make sure to share all of this out afterwards. But thank you all for being here.
Thanks,
Cheers to
everyone.
co-creating a better world of work.
Yeah.
If not us, then who?
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly,
Christine.
exactly, exactly.
Love
Here,
that.
here.
All right.
All right, everyone. Have a great week
Thank
and talk to you
you,
Thanks,
soon.
Chelsea. Thank
all.
you, Heather.
Thank you.
Bye.